Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Josh. I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving, those who celebrate. I know I'm not in my usual setup because I'm actually staying with my grandparents over the holiday weekend, so you might hear some noise in the background, and obviously this isn't as good looking as my normal setup because I'm shooting this on my iPhone, but it is what it is. Today we're going to be talking about Saltburn. This movie comes to us from Emerald Fennell, whose debut I really enjoyed, and that was Promising Young Woman, which came out in 2020. That film was visually striking. It did a really good job of combining several different tones into this bizarre, wildly unpredictable film that was very subversive and enjoyable to watch. Saltburn is in some ways very similar and in other ways very different. This is an R-rated black comedy slash psychological thriller. I think it kind of blurs the lines between those two genres. Again, something that I really like about this director. She takes big swings and I really respect that. This movie follows a character named Oliver Quick, who is played by Barry Keoghan. I've always really liked him, but I've never seen him in a leading role like this film, so this gave him a chance to shine. Oliver is a freshman at Oxford University. He doesn't have very many friends. He's kind of a social outcast, and he got there by scholarship, so he's clearly one of the few students in there that is in the lower class. He winds up meeting this kid, Felix, played by Jacob Elordi, who was great as Elvis in Priscilla a couple weeks ago. Now I get to see him again as a very different character. And he comes from a far wealthier family, so instantly Oliver becomes kind of enamored by what he is. And what he is essentially what Oliver desires. So right from the get-go, there are clear themes of greed, of desire, and jealousy. After forming a friendship with Felix, he winds up getting invited to his massive estate for the summer. And it's there that a lot of weirdness ensues. I was not prepared for some of the really uncomfortable scenes in this film. The best way I can describe this story in a nutshell is think the killing of a sacred deer mixed with Parasite. Now, to someone who hasn't seen the movie, that's not really going to make much sense. But what I'm trying to say is that it has a very dark, almost satirical tone, kind of like that of the killing of a sacred deer. It has some Yorgos Lanthimos feels to it, but the meat of the story itself also had a lot of similarities to Parasite that I noticed. And I don't mean either of those as insults. I'm just trying to give you an idea of what the tone is and what kind of story it is. And Barry Keoghan as Oliver, in terms of what the role demands, I think he was great. At times, he's very reserved. There's things that he hides from us as the audience as well as characters in the movie, so it's kind of hard to connect with him, but you're still very intrigued by him. And there are certain reveals later on that I found pretty predictable, but they were still interesting, and I was curious to where they would go after that. I was a bit disappointed by the fact that I was able to predict a lot of the domino effects of this revelation that occurs midway through the film. And it also definitely goes on way too long. I was feeling the runtime. The conclusion was satisfying, but it was what I expected, and I just feel like they could have gotten there quicker. There's a lot of fat in this that didn't need to be there. But stylistically speaking, I think Emerald Fennell has knocked it out of the park again. I love the aspect ratio. There's tons of colorful, vivid imagery that conveys the mood of each scene wonderfully. The cast puts in some great work. Barry Keoghan is great. Jacob Elordi is great. And I really liked Rosamund Pike and Richard E. Grant as Felix's parents. They're very eccentric. Again, there's a lot of eccentric characters in this that do things that oftentimes don't make sense. And that reminds me that this is a very satirical film that isn't meant to be taken completely literally. But there were still points in it where I felt like it was a little too weird and characters do things and I'm like, normal people just wouldn't do that. And the themes of jealousy and greed were quite obvious, but again, I was mostly satisfied by where it went at the end. It just took too long to get there. So ultimately, I'm going to say this was kind of a mixed bag, but I'm going to lean slightly towards the positive because I think overall it's worth a one-time watch. So I'm going to give Saltburn 3 out of 5 stars. Know what you're into. If you like weird, wacky, R-rated, very R-rated at times, dark humor movies, you'll probably get a kick out of this. One little nitpick that I have that bugged me, and I forgot to mention this before when I was talking about the cast, Carey Mulligan is in this too for about 10 minutes. She's a great actress, but it feels like she's in this movie just as a favor or something because she plays an interesting character who's there for about 10 minutes and then just disappears. And I'm like, why not feature her more? She's so good. So yeah, slow pacing becomes a bit grating at times. The themes are pretty obvious. The characters at times are hard to read and make decisions that I just don't understand whatsoever. But for the most part, it works well enough. Be sure to let me know down in the comments if you have seen Saltburn. What did you think of it? And also, what's your favorite dark comedy? I do hope to see Napoleon and Wish and get reviews for those up over the next couple of days, so stay tuned for those, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. See you later.